Hello, I'm Angela.
And I'm Marie, the second half of this mother and daughter team.
Welcome to Chakra Checkups.
We're here to guide you on your quest for spiritual knowledge and enlightenment. We're here. Welcome back.
Welcome back, Chakra Checkup listeners. So, Mom, I feel like the more and more that I've been practicing a lot of the techniques and meditations that you've been talking about, the less I relate to many people now. And I feel a lot more sensitive if I do end up going out, like with a group of friends or something. I'm often picking up some sort of entity and bringing it back home with me. So how can I reintegrate myself into the world?
Well, you probably were picking up all those things before, and now you are, as you said, more sensitive. So you've just become more aware of what is happening, and that can be a little bit alarming. If you go someplace and you suddenly feel an entity crawling up your arm, which I have had happen, there are some things you can do that will help. And I've talked about this list with many people, and still some people don't really quite get the significance of it. So I made a list of probably the 7 most significant things that you can do to help minimize picking up something and walking around with it and then feeling, upset, nauseated, or whatever you're going to feel depending on what you picked up.
All right. Awesome.
Are we all ready just to go ahead and do everything on the list?
Yeah, let's walk us through. What's number 1?
Okay. Well, the number 1 is being in your body, having your soul in your body till it is in your feet, touching your feet. We've talked about on podcasts, they go in their body once and they just don't get the significance of it. But there's a couple things that are significant about that in regards to picking up stuff from other people. First of all, the purpose of your first chakra is to charge up all of the other chakras, to grab energy, and it's like the engine of your whole body, and charge it up. And where that charge mostly comes from is from the earth. It's from the energy of the earth. If you're not 100% in your body, if your soul is not in your feet, and when you're walking around, it's touching the ground, then at best, you're just getting a small percentage of that ability to charge up your system, which tends to make you run down and tired. But in terms of protection, it's very significant because you can't run the energetics around you or have the sensitivity around you strong enough to really protect you. The way I often say it is, it makes a weak psychic immune system.
Uh-huh. More susceptible to pathogens, so to speak.
More acceptable to anything dark.
Uh-huh. Okay, so refresh my memory, because I feel like I'm a pretty grounded person, but how would I tell if I'm in my body or not?
Well, if you look in the mirror or just stand up and you imagine that your soul is directly up, because that's usually where it goes when you're awake, and you breathe and you say, I'm willing to have my soul 100% in my body, and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to bring my soul down into my body. You're in charge of this, so there's no resistance to doing it if you're saying you want to do it. And you breathe until you feel tingling in your feet, till you feel it, and you will feel shorter and you will feel denser.
Okay.
So if you try that exercise and you feel a significant difference, then you were not in your body.
Okay.
And therefore, you don't have the protection that you would have if you are there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it just makes you stronger. And you can't charge up your body. You can to some degree, but it's a lot weaker. So it's like you're running around on 50% power and you're checked out. When you're not in your body, you don't feel as many physical sensations as you would otherwise. So when an entity or some weird energy comes along, I usually feel it as kind of like electricity, kind of a creepy electricity with crawling up my arm or something of that nature. So I'll
Uh-huh.
feel it right away.
Uh-huh.
If you're not in your body, you won't feel it. So you won't even notice it.
Okay, so that makes sense, like why I'm feeling more sensitive
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just feel it more.
Right. And let's say, okay, so you did go to a bar and you did feel that. Well, then you can go right into the restroom and wash off your arm and it'll go away.
Okay, good to know.
Anytime you feel like I might be picking up stuff, go in and just wash off real quick, and that will help to repel anything that's just transitory.
Uh-huh.
But basically, you have to be in your body to know the difference.
And I mean, that could also include jumping in a lake or the ocean or other bodies of water, a pool.
Yeah, those are all very good for cleaning up, for sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
water is very, very good for getting rid of entities. Matter of fact, here's an interesting side note. Uh, when you leave a country and you fly across, an ocean, or a lot of times your entities don't follow you.
Wait, what?
So it's weird. If you're in, like San Francisco and you fly to Mexico or something and you cross a body of water, a lot of entities won't won't go with you across a body of water. That's
Okay,
why
so
sometimes
wait.
when people fly to some place like Hawaii, they're like, "Oh my God, I feel so marvelous here." It's because they left all their junk at home.
Wait, so you're saying when people can like go, they're like, I need an escape from my life. I'm gonna go here. And like let's say they move to some like place like Hawaii, like they just never get those same issues back. Like,
Well, they can regenerate them for sure.
okay.
Yeah, they can regenerate them, but there's certain type of entities, they just don't seem to like to cross bodies of water. So when you cross a big body of water, the entity tends to stay on land.
Oh, that's so funny.
So water's a great repellent to any kind of negative energy.
Okay. I think this solidifies my wants of just living on a sailboat or something and just being surrounded by water. Nothing can get me out here.
Well, that's true. It was, and I used to be a professional scuba diver, and always felt marvelous. You're in the water all day long, and you come up and you feel great. And water turns you to Teflon; nothing sticks.
Yeah.
So, being your body, that's an important one, definitely. So you can charge up, and so you know what's happening. That's that's really, really important. The other one that I've talked again about many times is making your energy field small. A lot of high powered psychic people have this ability to expand their energy field really far from their body. I've seen some people that if you go in one direction, it goes out 22 feet. And that, of course, is in a circle around them. So they've got a 40-foot field around them. I've seen many, many people that have this like 15 feet. So that means they've got a 30-foot circle around them.
Mm-hmm.
This is not appropriate energetically. You're actually trying to dominate the field with your energy. So if you're stronger than whoever else is in that field, anybody that walks within that 30 feet,
Yeah.
they are now in your field, and you are kind of encroaching on theirs.
Okay.
And that is the same as violating their energy. So that gives them permission to jump into yours.
Okay.
So basically, you kind of broken down what a natural barrier you might have. And if that person has anything that resonates with anything that you have, your father beat you, their father beat them, they can connect because of that resonance.
Uh-huh.
And so then all of a sudden you've got this energy exchange going back and forth. Usually they're sucking away your energy and dumping their junk on you.
Well, yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah. And the other thing about it is people that do this, of course, in their homes or in small spaces, people get irritated with them because they feel like you take too much space. You don't, I can't get any space around you. If you hear people saying that in your home, they're probably describing exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, just a
It's,
feeling more than you actually are taking up their space, but it's
well, you are
an
taking up their space.
energetic. Yeah.
Yeah, you actually are taking up their space. You're expanding out your thought forms, your energy to the point where there's no room left for them.
Uh-huh.
So the appropriate thing to do is to literally breathe and say, I'm going to bring my energy field down to within 2 feet of my body. That gives you a 4-foot circle. Even that's a little bit big, but it's a lot better to be in that. Then you're going to know who's in that little space,
Right.
as opposed to being 30 feet that covers the whole party.
Right. The entire bar. You don't want to pick up everything that everyone has at like a bar scene, I'm sure.
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes you do, and then you get home and you feel like you're covered in crud because you are.
Uh-huh.
I think I've mentioned I had a nurse that had so much stuff on her. I just grabbed a candle and spent more than half an hour just pulling these weird little energy things off of her and throwing them into a candle flame. You can really get covered with stuff.
Uh-huh.
So you definitely want to make your field small and tight when you go into public.
So, yeah, walk us through that exercise again.
Well, what you do is you just imagine your energy field as like a big balloon in any color that you like to see it, doesn't matter. And think of when you're breathing, on every exhale, the balloon gets smaller and tighter and closer to your physical body. If you're doing this properly, you will actually begin to feel the density. As you get real close, you'll feel the density and things kind of firm up. And this is good. It really works just like if you throw a dart at a really big balloon, it's very easy to pop it. If you throw a dart at a balloon that's just barely got any air in it, the dart will bounce off of it.
Uh-huh.
It works the same way with your psychic energy. If your energy field is small and tight, things will bounce off of it. They have a hard time penetrating that energy field.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this can be very, very useful. But it also will repel anybody that's super dark. The in between people, it's not so defined. But if someone's really dark and you're really light, they will want to be away from you,
Uh-huh.
because bright light will repel darkness. Their entities or whatever, they're not going to want to be around that. They don't want to be in bright light. So they will tend to move away and not want to interface with you. And people that are more of like mind and like light, bright as you are, they will tend to want to be with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way of kind of defining the crowd without having to say or do anything, really.
Okay, I like that idea.
Yeah, yes. It works very well. And it also just puts just a safety net around you.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that next time I go out.
Yeah.
Which hasn't been very often lately, but
Well, but maybe this big, beautiful person will come over to you
maybe.
and you'll just go, wow, I'm glad I did that.
I'll give it a shot. Why not? Can't hurt.
Okay. So the other thing that is you can do to help protect yourself, and I know people aren't going to like this too much, but is to avoid touching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one would be particularly difficult, well, here and in other cultures, because it's very common when you greet someone just to be kissing them on the cheek and doing like a half hug kind of thing, or a
Well,
handshake or whatever.
yeah, try to stick with a handshake and avoid hugging somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
If you do that, at least if you've done the things before, you'll be less likely to pick something up.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is that if a lot of people, when they hug someone, when they touch somebody, they kind of spontaneously open up their energy, and they're like, kind of very welcoming, loving feeling that they're exuding, and they are energetically just opening up and becoming more vulnerable in order to meet this person. They're just a spontaneous thing that certain very loving people do. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily bad. However, that also makes you vulnerable to picking things up, because you've just kind of changed the dynamic of what we've just tried to set up, which is try to protect you from everything. And you just said, oh no, well, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and give this person a big old hug.
Is there a way to put up some sort of barrier if you are going to continue to hug people or your
You,
friends, or?
well, you can consciously, and I know it sounds kind of awful, but you can consciously say, I'm going to hug them, but I'm not going to allow any of their energy to cross into any of mine. You can set a barrier.
So instead of going into it being like, oh, like how nice to see them, love them, you're kind of like energetically putting like a standoff vibe on it instead.
Well, a little bit, yes. The
Okay.
truth of it is that's true. I run into so many couples or couples that are having problems with this. If somebody, if one or the other partner is really, really dark, or fairly dark, and the other one's more on the light side, it's difficult when you're in contact with someone that has a lot of darkness. And it's kind of like, you can go into a cold lake for a while, but you can't live there forever. The more you're going into somebody's dark energy, the more it's going to affect you. It's going to cause you to have physical symptoms. You're going to feel tired. You're going to feel edgy. You're going to feel grumpy. You may not sleep well. It's important to, first of all, be discerning about who you're touching, and ultimately who you partner with, but also to try to really be careful about setting up some of these boundaries so that you won't pick stuff up.
For one of these couples, that one person might have a lot of entities or something and you're partnered with them, is there a way to keep your boundaries up so that you could still be together and not have it affect you as much?
Yes, there are some ways. A lot of the people that I have talked to that are going through this, they find it to be sort of tedious to try to constantly be checking and rechecking or setting their boundaries. But unfortunately, to some degree, that is necessary if you don't want to be picking up stuff from that particular person.
Okay.
Um, and this is especially true, and it works when you're not in a long-term relationship also, is that if you're sleeping with somebody that has dark energy, it is next to impossible to go to sleep with someone that has an entity or more than one entity or a lot of dark energy and not wake up with some of it.
Okay.
Because when you're asleep, you're just all, you're all curled around each other and wrapped up and relaxed, and you're not thinking about setting any kind of boundary. In fact, you've, kind of consented. So we're going to, take off all our clothes and snuggle up. So that makes you very, very vulnerable to picking something up. And
You're
um,
all snuggled up with their entities too, huh?
yes, it comes with the package. It does.
Uh-huh.
And it's made worse if you have issues that resonate with their issues. So if if your father beat you and their father beat them and they have a dark entity, maybe you don't, maybe you've healed a little bit past that, but you're still angry or pissed off about it, then you've got a pre-made highway for the energy to go right back and forth.
Okay.
I mean, that's the reality of it. That's why in some strict cultures, they don't even want people to basically hardly touch each other until they're married. I mean, there's some energetic reasons around that. And I know our society, we're a lot more liberal, and but it has its problems. It can have its problems. And this doesn't have to be a love relationship. If you were all camping together and you said, well, oh, okay, we're friends, he can camp, he can be in my tent next to me, or we can share this double sleeping bag or something like that, you're the same situation, the same vulnerability.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult to protect yourself when you're having contact with someone and you're asleep. And I mean, on the really dark side of that is, I have had many people who have gotten drunk and passed out, and somebody took advantage of them and they picked up all kinds of stuff. If you're unconscious, you're extremely vulnerable.
Right.
Then you have to deal with that. And the unfortunate thing is, a lot of times, if if an entity or dark energy has resonance with you somewhere in your system, then you don't necessarily feel it. It's something that kind of comes on slow, because it's kind of like, oh, home again. This is a familiar territory.
Uh,
And
well, I
so,
know for me, like when you said that I had picked up something, it like presented itself as like a new physical pain.
yes, but you're more sensitive than some people would have been.
Uh-huh.
I mean, some people may not have noticed that for a month or two, so they wouldn't necessarily think, oh, that was when I was with so and so.
Right.
They would just go, what did I do? I must have bent over crooked, or I tripped or something like that.
I mean, to be fair, those were my first thoughts anyways.
Right. Until they come across someone like me and I go, what is this big dark pancake that you've got slapped on your back, and where did it come from? Uh,
Right.
and generally those sort of things, if they haven't been there that long, they're easy enough to get off. You generate light, you think of light, you generate light, you breathe into the area where you think you might have picked something up, and you keep generating bright light and breathing into it and saying, nothing's allowed in my energy, this must go. if you
Uh-huh.
if you catch it on the first day or so, and you do that, it should go very quickly, and you won't get into having accidents or being ill or whatever long term.
Right.
If you don't do anything, then it's sort of like a virus. It starts to weave its way into your energetics in your body and becomes more and more at home. Then you start acting out in various different ways. You're more paranoid, you're less trusting, you're more anxious, you're all of these things that you maybe weren't 6 months ago.
Right.
And of course, then it's harder to help somebody when they're in that situation, because they're paranoid and not trusting, so they're not going to listen to anything I want to say. It could be difficult. Then I'm in a situation sometimes with someone, I have to first convince them that it's there, and then trust me enough to try to move it along, because they've gotten so ingrained with it.
Right.
So it's better to, first of all, avoid sleeping with somebody that you know very little. Really, I would just avoid that. Even if you were dating and you were having sex, you'd be better to uh, initially to just get up and go home than to sleep over with someone.
Okay.
I know that sounds awful, but if you're just not 100% sure, just be careful, because when you're conscious, it's less of a problem. But
Okay. Words from the wise, ladies. Get up and leave after.
Or send them away or whatever.
That was nice, but I just don't feel comfortable enough for you to stay over. Okay, great.
Or not to sleep in my bed. You can sleep on the sofa.
Here's the floor. You can sleep on the dog bed. Okay.
Or just be very, very conscious that there's might be a likelihood that you could have picked something up, and then really sit down and go through your body chakra by chakra, checking it out, asking how it feels. Does everything feel as good as it did the day before? And generate light, and then take a shower and smudge and all of that, and make sure you're clean.
Okay.
Because you want to catch these things before.
Right. When you put it that way, it does seem easier to send them home after.
In a way, it is. It's just, might be a little problem for them. Sometimes people instinctively like to do that. They like to get up and leave, and maybe they instinctively know that it affects their energy that way.
Well, I know a lot of people, they don't even realize it as like an energetic thing, but they're like, I just sleep better in my own bed at home.
When we talk about these things with entities, the thing that always flashes back in my mind is this one work I did in Brazil with all these people, and this entity that left someone, and then it kind of got up like a cobra, and it was looking around the room like, where do I go? And it slithered over to this one woman, and then she was brushing it away, so it went away. Then it looked around some more, then it slithered over to this other woman and just started very slowly wrapping around her arm, and then up her shoulder, and then around her neck. And she kind of shook her shoulder a little bit, but then she just went right back to doing what she was doing, was totally fine with it. And that's the kind of thing you can picture happening while you're sleeping.
Yeah, it's really creepy.
It's creepy. It is creepy, but it actually does happen. And I would like it not to be happening to people, so I'm trying to give you a heads up here.
Yeah. Okay, so what else can we do?
Okay, one of the things that make you the most vulnerable to picking things up from people is that if you have the mindset that, and this could be in long-term relationships or just short-term relationships or just judgment, if you have the mindset that you need to fix or heal that person, particularly without permission. So if you're interfacing with this person and you're saying, well, he would be just perfect for me if he wasn't blah blah blah, or I could really help him, and I help him to get rid of some of his things, and then we'll be the perfect couple. Or
he would be such a great guy if he didn't have all of this trauma.
Exactly. Is when you're doing that, when you're in that mindset, it's very hard to be in that mindset and not be extending yourself into their body energetics.
Okay.
I mean, you wouldn't be making the judgment if you were not seeing or feeling something. So you probably have already kind of gone beyond their boundary, and you're using your psychic ability to kind of check them out and figure out what you feel needs fixing.
Okay.
And the truth is, they don't need to be fixed by you for sure. They don't need to be fixed by any person. They need to be fixed by themselves. Hopefully with the help of their angels, but not by you. So as soon as you have determined that you're going to fix them or heal them or bring them to some consciousness to make them better, you've extended into their energy, and now you've opened a real good highway for them to attach to you.
And I mean, even if that person isn't willing or wanting to address some of these things, you telling them all of the ways to fix them isn't going to help anyways.
It isn't going to help anyway. No, you can't fix them. You cannot fix them. I mean, one of the best ways to fix someone sometimes is to see them in perfection.
Okay.
If your realization is they're totally fine the way they are, and whatever they're doing, you just, this is perfect, they're on their path to healing, and this is perfect for them.
Uh-huh.
You're not extending into their energy, and that is allowing them to totally do whatever they need to do until they can heal.
Mm-hmm.
People that want to fix someone, they don't understand that it's not like that person wakes up and says, "Oh, I am really screwed up and I really want to stay screwed up today."
Yeah, they're just stuck.
They're stuck. They're stuck, or they're afraid, or psychically they're just still bleeding from their wounds. They're a long way from the place where they're ready to say, "Okay, I'm going to take the next step and let all this go."
Right.
When someone that is more enlightened comes along and they can look at it and say, "Oh, it seems really simple. We can do blah, blah,
Well,
blah." Well,
well,
that's
yeah, if someone's bleeding energetically from their wounds, it's really hard not to want to step in and be like, let me patch you up.
right. But that won't help them.
Uh-huh.
If they come to you and they say, "Yes, help patch me up," that's one thing. But if you're just saying, "We've had coffee and we've made love a few times, so let me tell you what you need to do now," well, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And if you're extending into their energy, the first thing they do when they attach to you is they start, people that have major stuff going on, they're tired all the time. So the first thing that they do is they start sucking away your energy because they're
Mm-hmm.
tired and they need energy. And that's why a lot of people want to touch psychic people, is to get energy.
Mm-hmm.
You're like a battery, a huge battery with lots and lots of wattage, and these people are tired and run down, and they're just don't have the energy to practically open the refrigerator and look for something to eat, much less try to heal themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go into their energy, the first thing they do is they start tapping yours.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of happy you're in a relationship, and then you notice, God, I'm more tired than I can ever remember being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because you've created this highway. And if you don't remove that energetically and you break up and then go with someone else, you still have it that attached to this other person. It's still going on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So after a time, after a few years, if you've had a few relationships, you've got chronic fatigue or something. You're just so tapped out, you can't even figure out why. It's because you're just constantly being drained by these past situations where you've allowed people to tap into you and you've never changed that.
And I mean, I imagine it would be exhausting for both parties. The one person always hearing how much they need to change, and then you kind of micromanaging what they're doing.
Right. And even if you don't verbalize it, if you just have the idea in your mind, well, you know, if I just love him a certain way, he's going to change and then he'll be okay. If if you're in a relationship that you think that he someone needs to just change enough to be acceptable, that isn't love and that isn't healing.
Uh-huh.
That's codependency probably, but it's definitely not love or healing. And it definitely will affect you in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you inadvertently or you hurt them in some way, then you can wind up with an entity of your own.
What do you mean if you've hurt them in some way?
Well, I know one thing that I've seen happen that I've talked to couples about is that they get into that dynamic and then all of a sudden they're getting into some real aggressive fights. They're yelling and screaming and sometimes even getting violent with each other.
Uh-huh.
If you are angry and you feel energy come out of you when you're angry, when you're yelling at someone or you're really angry and you just feel like this huge charge of energy leave you, that is about the equivalent of an entity, because that thought form which isn't love and light, has substance.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to that person, this hypothetically wounded person, and it hits them, it's smack, and it's going to make them feel crappy. It's going to make them feel nauseous or sick or agitated, or it's going to connect to the part of them that's in doubt about themselves, and they'll like, I really am no good. It's just, it's, there's nothing positive about that.
Uh-huh.
So you can actually do real damage to that person, really hurt them by exuding these really powerful thought forms at someone that is weaker and can't resist your psychic field.
Okay.
It's not only not good for you to be doing that sort of thing, it's really not good for the poor person on the other end of receiving end of this.
Right.
It's not going to make them feel better. One of the greatest ways that people can go and get healing nowadays is to go to Vipassana, which is a silent retreat, silent meditation.
Uh-huh.
And when you sit in silent meditation, what happens is you're just in the space of being able to just be you, be totally accepted with no judgment, and have an opportunity to heal.
Uh-huh.
And after 10 days of that, I've been there myself, and I've also had friends that have gone in and come out. People have amazing healing because no one is saying that they need to do anything in terms of changing who they are or what they are. Uh, no one is judging them. And all they're doing is sitting there and being able to have an opportunity to be with themselves in a safe environment with nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really tremendous gift to give somebody, because that alone can often just give you the opportunity to heal.
Mm-hmm.
In a relationship, ideally, if you would totally love the person, that's the kind of energy you would set up.
That makes sense.
And that will make you more protected because you don't have a highway of energetics going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
All you're doing is extending love, and there's never a problem with extending love to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Love and acceptance is a very, very healing space.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have an agenda for how long it's going, how long you're willing to do that, I'm willing to love them for a week, and if they've been fixed in a week, then all good. Then again, you're back to the first conversation.
Right.
so it's a little bit tricky, but it works. So that's one way you can protect yourself, and you can protect your partner or your friend, whoever it is.
Uh-huh.
Ultimately, the best way you can protect yourself is to completely clean up everything in your energy.
Uh-huh.
If you're not carrying in your chakras any darkness, any unhealed energy, any anger, any distrust, if you go through and spend the time, do soul retrievals on whatever you need to do soul retrievals on, let go of all the anger, generate light, then you become Teflon. Nothing is going to stick to you.
Okay.
Nothing will want to come to you.
Okay.
Not people. I'm not saying no people will want to come to you, but their dark energy does not like light.
Right.
Dark energy is repelled by light. So if you are a perfect shining light, it's very hard for anything to stick to you, to jump onto you, or to come to you. So there's the easy solution: just become enlightened.
The easy solution.
And it's not an issue. See, nothing was sticking to Buddha or Jesus.
We have
Or
no proof of that. I
So,
mean, yeah, you make it sound, oh yeah, just generate light, you'll be fine. But that's, I mean, there's
well,
a lot of steps involved in cleaning up your energy.
yes, but even as a short-term practice, whenever you're in doubt, if you sit there and generate light, I mean, you could be actually sitting in a bar and feel like something like some guy's giving you a creepy look or something, or some girl's giving you a creepy look. And if you just sit there and all of a sudden just said, okay, I'm just I'm gold light, aquamarine blue light, and it's swirling all around me, I'd be willing to bet any amount of money that they will go away.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be attracted to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the more you generate light in your life, it all adds up. It doesn't diminish. It's not like a bank account that you run out of. The more light you generate, the more light you have.
Right. Right. I mean, that makes sense. But I'm just saying, like, I know that you said that you've only seen a handful of people with perfect chakras.
This is true. So that's why it would be a good idea for us all to be practicing generating some light.
Aim for perfection and aim a little higher.
Right.
Okay.
But I do chakra readings every single day. And there are so many people that have really beautiful energy, really beautiful energy. A lot. I see that a lot. And they're not doing anything with it.
Right.
They go, "Oh yeah, I've been to 6 psychics and they've all said that." Okay. Now it's 7.
Right.
And they're very nice people and they're very intelligent people, but they just don't do anything with it. But what if all of these people that are like that in the entire world were generating light?
Uh-huh.
That could change the world. And, it makes it a safer place energetically.
Uh-huh. Which
If
I
you
guess
go,
back to my very first point of harder to relate to the rest of the people that are still on the daily grind.
well, that's true. But I mean, do you really want to? Do you really want to be in a relationship with somebody that has a, demon wrapped around their midsection?
No, but how do you find the people that don't have that?
Well, you generate light, and you're going to be more attracted to them. And the more you generate light, the more your chakra is going to open, and you're going to be able to see them.
Right.
Um, and you can choose wisely.
Yeah.
I was generating light. I literally sat down and put myself in a space of light, and then I breathed that light into my hand and went on a dating app and just didn't read anything what it said. I just scanned across the pictures until I felt like somebody had a lot of light. And I met someone who I wound up dating for more than a year and a half who was a billionaire, and it was a very smart guy.
Right.
No, you generate light and you're going to be attracted to light.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sure, Mom.
And you're going to repel darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can take your chances. You can take your chance that you don't have any darkness left in you. So I don't need to protect myself. I don't need to be in my body. I don't need to think about shielding myself anyway. What the hell? I'm just going to drink a lot and hug everybody and go to bed with someone at the end of the night and see how I feel in the morning.
Which, I mean, to be fair, is probably what most of us have been doing without a conscious effort. And I think a lot of us don't feel very well. So I guess
But
we'll go into generating light and see how that works for a while.
if you do that, you don't lose your light. That's one thing you should know. You don't lose your light. It doesn't go away. You might feel crappy for a while you sort out what you took on, uh, and how much alcohol you drank or whatever, but you don't lose your light. You're going to wake up and you're going to have the same chakra system that you had before,
Mm-hmm.
maybe with the addition of a few critters, but basically the same. You're still going to have a being or a semi enlightened being or whatever you are.
Do the people that you hang out around, if you are a bright and shiny light, do the people around you get lighter as well?
Yes, they do, because a lot of light is very healing. So most of the spectrum of bright light is very healing. White light is healing, blue light is healing, gold light is healing, silver light is healing. And people that have a lot of that in their chakras, they are fluorescing this outward, and anybody that comes into that field is going to be soaking it up.
Nice. So the more light that you're generating just within yourself, the more other people are going to end up healing on their own.
I used to do a meditation where I'd say, okay, I am light, I am light, my living room is light, my neighbors houses in that area is light, the neighborhood is light, the city is light, the state is light, the United States is light, the oceans around the United States are light, now Canada and Mexico, we just like to keep seeing it expanding light.
Uh-huh.
Because they say if you generate like a positive thought or light, it goes out, penetrates the universe, comes back, centers on you.
Huh.
So the more light that you send out, the more light comes back to you. Again, it's not diminishing, you can't run out of it.
Uh-huh.
So that's going to just go out, and so you don't need to try to heal someone or fix them by
Uh-huh.
thinking about what's wrong with them and how you're gonna make them better. You just go about your day filling the house full of light.
Uh-huh.
Cooking, when you're stirring food, I'm cooking this pot of soup, and it's full of light and healing, love and healing light, and like that.
Yeah.
And and things will get better.
I love that.
It works. That's why everybody my cooking. I made pea soup, and I took some. The neighbor said her husband loves pea soup, and it's his birthday yesterday, so I took him some pot of pea soup, and he came back and he said, I loved that soup. That was the best soup ever. And his wife said he licked the pan, he licked the bowl.
It could be that you're a good cook, but
It could be I'm a good cook because I try to put light into everything that I cook too.
yeah. I mean, I definitely think there's a big difference in the people that think about love and how they love cooking and what it tastes like compared to if you're not actively doing that, for sure.
That's true. Or maybe just because I do cook. I think so many people don't even cook. They just never try cooking. I mean, they're not eating the cooked food very much, that home cooked food. So who knows? But at any rate, there's no downside to generating light. And there's very little downside to protecting yourself, other than it can be a little bit challenging to have to go through it
Uh-huh.
until you get more used to just running your energetics on a daily basis and being responsible for what's going on, so you can cross paths with whoever and still be okay.
Uh-huh.
If you look at nurses and doctors, some doctors, a lot of nurses, they are extremely overweight, and part of that is because they're not being protected, and they keep picking up stuff and picking up stuff.
Uh-huh. I don't know that I've seen very many doctors that are overweight.
No, not so many. Okay, if you look at nurses, not so much the doctors, but the nurses, a lot of nurses are very much overweight.
Uh-huh.
And it's because they are hands on with a lot of people that are having a lot of issues, and they pick up a tremendous amount of stuff.
I mean, I would assume that would somewhat go for a lot of people that are just generally overweight.
Yes, it can. It can do. A lot of times there are people that are out of body and they have very little protection because they're not charging up their body. They're out of body. They don't have a huge awareness of what's going on. And of course, then they are attracted and resonate with other people that are having similar issues, and it just keeps going round and round.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get into dysfunctional relationships. The relationships break down. They start to hurt each other, fight, and yell and scream, and all of that. And then they break up, and they're all sort of more damaged. And a lot of that could be prevented by careful
light.
generating light and managing your energetics, managing, who and what you're attracted to and how you interface with that person.
Uh-huh. Well, you've certainly given us a whole list of homework today.
It's not work, it's just natural consciousness about what you should be doing.
It's new attention to detail, which is a little bit of work to get into your daily routine.
Yeah. I suppose now there are going to be a few going to go, I don't know if I really want to sleep with him or not.
Yeah.
Or her.
Yeah.
But that could be a good thing.
Save yourself.
Really.
All right. Well, if anybody has any questions, wants to call in, comment, anything, there's a link in this podcast description. Also, just for shits and giggles, I've made a collection of chakra checkups swag, mugs, and shirts and whatnot that can be found at chakracheckups.com. Thanks for listening. And if you want to keep hearing episodes, you love the content we're putting out, be sure to subscribe and rate our show. That will help us out tremendously without you having to spend a dime. And thanks for listening. We'll have another episode for you next week. Bye for now.
Bye for now.